So as we move along, we were just over there at the place where we picture the cars, clean them out, that sort of stuff. We moved over here to the preparation area, or prep area is what we call it. And behind us is a drain rack that my dad built many years ago, and we just put it back into use this year, and it's working out pretty good. All right, OtterSeconds fam, we're back today. We're always back every day. It's Saturday. We're having the 4th of July weekend. Went out to the races for the 4th, watched fireworks, that sort of stuff. It was good. Racing was amazing. They're having races again, just 3 days of races or whatever. But so I'm out at the yard today. Figured we'd do a little bit of work. Our long weekends, unless we have something concrete planned, we end up doing a little work sometime throughout the weekend. And actually, I think I'll run you through kind of the process about what happens when we get a car in, what it does, our process, at least currently. We're evolving this process to be more like the bigger yards, but it's an evolution, and it's going to take a little while to get it all into effect. So basically, when we get a car in, it comes in here. It usually goes down in the lower lot there past the gate. These 6 cars or so right here are ones that have come in. Basically what happens is they get stock numbered, and you'll see the numbers written on them. We have stickers that are made up. They go up in the windshield. Then when we mark a car in, we gotta do the state requirements and the federal requirements of them. And basically that states, we have to maintain titles on them. We have to have the VIN numbers. We have to report that to NVIDIS. We have to, do all of our state and federal reporting when we bring a vehicle in. And the Carfax reports and stuff, it has, when they've been sold and all that stuff. Well, basically, NVIDIS reports, your Carfax gets their information from NVIDIS. So basically, as an example, this Kia Soul, we got it. It was wrecked on this side. It was enough damage that whatever happened, they ended up not dealing with it. We bought this one from another towing company that ended up having it. And so, it's just one that we're going to part out for salvage. And so basically it comes in here. We bring it in, we mark it in, we take the VIN number. We do a very basic condition report on it. We have to have in our records on where we got it from, when we got it. As you can see written on the window, it said we bought it from Norberg Towing, 3823. It was an accident, so it's damaged. And then we document mileage. We do all that stuff as well. This one, we got to go through the process of getting a title on if we didn't get a title with it. So, done all that. It's all marked in. It's come out of the lot now. And so it's ready to go out into the yard. So before we get ready to take it out in the yard, we bring them up here. We clean out the garbage. We take pictures of it. And then all that's uploaded into the system. And then we take it out. Oh, well, once it's uploaded into the system, we cut the catalytic converters. We drain the fuel. Eventually, what we want to do is we want to have a completely dry yard, which means we'll pull the engines and transmissions, or at the very least drain them before it goes out into the yard. Right now, our yard is not a dry yard. We do have oil, we do have antifreeze in the yard. We're working on draining fuels and cutting catalytic converters before anything heads out into the yard. It keeps catalytic converter theft down, and the fuel is useful when it's new, and we can use it in our yard trucks, that sort of stuff. If we leave it out in the yard, it just goes bad, and it just causes more damage, and then we have to deal with a bunch of bad fuel when we go to crush. So it's just better if we deal with the fuel and the catalytic converters, at least the ones that are easy to cut now, so that we don't have the theft or deal with the bad fuel later. So I'll take you through where it goes from here. So as we move along, we were just over there at the place where we picture the cars, clean them out, that sort of stuff. We moved over here to the preparation area, or prep area is what we call it. And behind us is a drain rack that my dad built many years ago, and we just put it back into use this year. And it's working out pretty good. We still have some fine tuning to do on it, but overall, it'll definitely function. You know, around here, time is probably the most precious commodity, and that's the case here as well. So it's not 100% done, but we're testing it out. We're finding out what we need to fix, what we need to change on it to make it better. So what we got here is a generator and the Jaws of Life pump setup. We do use the Jaws, the Hirsch Jaws of Life cutters to cut cats. It works really good. We use it to cut roofs on cars that we're filling up with scrap metal as well. We try not to do that as much anymore though. So, as you can see, we got a pile of catalytic converters. We've been getting cars ready to go out into the yard, and basically, you know, that's what we got. These two cars right here, we're over in the main yard. They've already been put through. They're already pictured. So we're ready to cut cats and drain fuel. So we look them over underneath here, and we can see that the catalytic converters are tucked clear up in there. And they're not easy to cut, so this one won't get cut, but there is one back here. And so we'll cut this, either take a Sawzall or the Jaws of Life, and we'll cut the exhaust here and back here, and take this cat out, and it'll go in the pile here. And then back here's the fuel tank. We don't sell a lot of fuel tanks. We sell a few, but not very many. And so the best policy is we punch them or drill them with a special drill to drain the fuel out of them. We used to have some bigger fuel or oil and fuel drain cans. These are just Harbor Freight ones. So far they worked out okay. The funnels, if they were bigger, would be a little better. But basically what we'll do is we'll come up here, we'll punch these with the tank punch, and it will drain the fuel out of them. Same thing over here on this Durango. Basically, you come up in here, the catalytic converter was up in here. Megan cut that out. And while they're up here too, if we wanted to upload pictures of stuff underneath, that would be fine as well. It'd be easy to do. But the fuel tank isn't drained, so it is what, well, we'll get that drained come Monday. But we have drain pans for oil, is what they are, is the two main ones. We have this one for good gas. Then they'll go into a bigger container where basically, you know, we can fuel up our yard trucks and that sort of stuff on it. Some of the gas is kind of marginal, and for our old yard trucks around here, it works out okay. I'm trying to use the stuff as much as possible. I mean, we are a recycling company, so it's best to try and use the stuff if we can. If we have a bunch of old gas, it's kind of a pain. When you think about it on the math side of it, you might have 2 or 3 gallons of oil we get out of a car, but you know, on average, we probably get 5 to 8 gallons of gas out of each vehicle. So, you know, the old gas is really hard to deal with, and it's a pain. So it's way better to get it out when it first comes in, and that way, basically, you know, it's something that we can use. And so that's the most efficient and the best way to be a good steward to our environment. So we'll move on to the next step. All right, after they come off the drain rack and we've cut the cats and we've drained the fuel, then now it's time to put them out in the yard and locate them into the yard. So I'll show you here what a yard looks like from an inside point of view here, and we'll get down and we'll kind of go through how it works there. So this is our yard, or you know, the east side or whatever. There's about 30 acres and a touch over 3,000 cars that we have out here. When a car is drained and the cat's cut, it goes out into the main, or the yard here. I can't say the main yard because the main yard is the section we were in. The main yard used to be the main yard because it was our only yard. It was 5 acres. When my dad started, I had like 411 cars. And you know, the thing is, we've evolved now to such a bigger and bigger place that the main yard, honestly, I really don't want any cars actually stored in the main yard unless they're something we're selling or one of my projects. But it comes out here into the east side, which probably should be called the main yard, but it's not. And so we have all these rows, locations. It's laid out, you know, strategically, or there's thought behind how it's laid out. What we have is we have rows, and most of the rows are laid out where you have two rows together. And the reason why we do that is so we can always access preferably the front of the vehicle, because we can pull motors, transmissions, that sort of stuff easier. And we always sticker the windshield of the car, and so you can see some of these stickers have gotten old and come off, so we need to go back through and redo some stickering. But we can walk over here, I'll show you. So like this, and it doesn't have a windshield, it has a bad fender on it, so our sticker's on there. Then it's written on there. So we have these rows. We have the front facing out, preferably. Pretty much as we lay it out, as we're adding cars now, the front is always facing out. The ones where the front is not facing out currently is some of our old ways of doing stuff that we've evolved past. So we got two rows. This is row 5, this is row 6. So even numbers are always on this side. And if we have a single row, it's a half row, is what we call it. Eventually, we'll lay the yard back out. When we took back over, there was still so much stuff in the yard that we didn't want to redo everything. And so we kind of made the best of what we had. And it works. The other question we get a lot is why don't we put same makes or models together? And we've done a lot in that process. My dad did it that way back years ago, and it didn't really gain us a lot, but doing it that way. But the theft went up quite a bit because people could come in and they like go down the Dodge truck road because they're looking to steal a Dodge truck part. So, you know, I did some research and listened to some stuff that Amazon did with their warehousing and some of that stuff, and it really doesn't matter where it's at as long as you know where it is more important than actually having like things together. So, you know, there's a tiny bit of inefficiency on the checking parts if we don't have it in our inventory and we have to go look and see if we have it, because you do have to travel from row to row to row to get it. But we know where they're located, so you might have to hit 3 different locations to see all the vehicles, but we know where they're at. It's pretty efficient, and the amount of room it takes to try and save room for future certain models and different stuff like that is prohibitive as well. You don't know how many Ford Tauruses or Dodge pickups or whatever you're going to have for the future. So leaving a row half finished because you don't have it, there's so many makes and models out there that it's pretty prohibitive to do it that way efficiently and make the best use of the yard. I mean, we got 3,000 cars in, over 3,000 cars in, you know, 25 acres, and none of them are double stacked. So, you know, it's the best way we found to do the way we do it. So once we get a car that's ready to come out in the yard, basically I have a good idea because I run the yard side of it and the car side of it, and so I know where there's open spots. Basically behind me, you got row 3, row 4, and then row 5, and we've just went down 3, 4, and 5 and took out the cars we're going to crush for the year out of these 3 rows, and that was about 40 cars or so. The other question I get, and it's a big question, is how do you choose what cars you want to crush? So there's a couple different variables on how we choose which cars we're going to crush this year. I'll give you a little example. Basically, these 2 Porsche 924s, they're not horribly valuable. We don't sell parts off them very regularly. I'd be surprised if they're actually fully inventoried at all. But I think they're kind of cool. They kind of amuse me, so I keep them. You look at this one, the stock number on it's 23, which means it come in 2023. So, you know, that's one we've just put here. This is right here. It's got a 16 stock number on it, 160125. It's a Cadillac. You know, honestly, it could be crushed, but we found that Cadillacs, you know, people fix Cadillacs for a longer period of time, and people are looking for Cadillac parts for a longer period of time. And so that one's been here since 2016. As people build more of these cars and restore them and customize them and that sort of stuff, the parts become more valuable and people come looking for them more. So that car I'll leave. We got a Firebird, same scenario as a Cadillac. We sold some parts off of it, but it's still, you know, got some good parts on it, and it would be useful. The Civic, or I think it's Civic, it's just one we set here. The Jaguar, same as the Firebird and the Cadillac. This has been here since 2000, and honestly I probably could crush it, but I have a hard time with four-wheel drives. People are always putting money into, and then they're around for a long time, especially in our area. So I have a hard time crushing four-wheel drives unless they're really, really parted out. So we get down here, same thing with like pickups, stuff like that. It's a, you know, this is a four-wheel drive. So, you know, the parts on it will become more sought after a while. This has been here since 2015, and you won't see any stock numbers below 2015 because that's when we took over. Here's an open spot. This is a 17, and we got a few more open spots. So we go through, when we pull the cars out, take them over to the prep area to get crushed. It opens up spots to put the cars that are the new arrivals. So, you know, it's one of them things where, you know, it's constantly cycling, and which is a good thing. We want to keep the yard at full capacity or near full capacity at all times, because I mean that's the more inventory we can keep on hand. And so basically keeping, you know, 3,000 cars in the yard most if not all times is the goal. When we first took over, we were about 1,400 cars. We've added probably 16, 17, 1,800 cars now, and that's the goal to do, is keep it at full capacity as much as we can. Other than that, you know, it's kind of the process. You know, we've walked through what we do when we crush. So basically, after they're located in the yard, they hang out in the yard until we decide that, you know, they've reached their life expectancy, you know, in the yard, or we parted them out enough, or that we've got enough of them that we need to get rid of some of the older inventory, and then they get pulled out and stacked up and then prepped for crushing, and then crushed and then sent out. We're going to do some more in-depth videos on each step of the process, but I kind of figured it was important to do a little bit of an overview today on you know, kind of the life cycle of a car in our salvage yard. A lot of salvage yards run stuff differently. We've been around. My dad, you know, had the place in 1980. This system works well. It works well for us. It's also the system that most yards use. Some yards are a lot smaller than ours, and so basically they have a faster turnaround. Like, we can have cars in this yard that have been here for like 40 years, which is unheard of for most yards, because, you know, they don't have the room to hold stuff for that kind of time frame. And so, you know, we're a little different in that aspect, that we can hang on to stuff for a long time. A lot of yards would say we're kind of crazy for it. There's also, you know, a majority of yards that basically anything over 15 years old, they just crush, or 20 years old or whatever, because that's where the value of the parts is the lowest. So, you know, we operate a little differently. We operate the same as some. You kind of do what works for you. I mean, being in Wyoming, we don't have a lot of, you know, people around us. You know, there's 40,000 people in our whole county. I think our county is bigger than Rhode Island. But, you know, that doesn't matter. You do what works for you. And so, you know, basically that's how it works. We'll get into more stuff, more in depth in each step of the process, and I kind of want to just give everybody a little idea how a salvage yard really works in the background. And so, you know, it's an important step. The other thing that's important to note is we are what they call a full service yard. We don't allow people in the yard. Part of that's because of you know, we do work for the EPA, and basically, you know, they you know, basically said we had to have a dry yard, and that would include keeping our equipment out of it if there was anybody in the yard. That's not something we can attain right now because, you know, of the size, because of the amount of cars, because of how we're set up. In the future, we may end up, you know, putting in a pick and pull, but it'll be a completely separate location. We do have another 30 acres that's not fenced to the east of us that we can expand into. Basically, that's future plans. That's way down the line. So for right now, this is the system that's working. We're kind of fine-tuning it as we go, playing with it, changing things, adding things, taking things out. The other thing we also do is we operate on a very, very tight labor schedule, I guess. We don't have near enough employees for the size of the yard what we do. Our guys are really busy all the time. We try and get everything out. Our orders, our targets, 48 hours from the time you make an order to the time the part's ready, no matter what it is. Most of the time we're really close to that. You know, there's yards that are 5 acres that run way more cars through it. They can't hold on to them, so they're constantly crushing, they're constantly doing this stuff. And they have, you know, 20, 30 employees. You know, we're running this place with like 10. And we're larger, you know, larger size-wise than a lot of yards. So it's kind of hard to compare. I guess everybody does it different. I look at all the different industries, all the different successful businesses, and even our industry to get ideas on how to do stuff and how to do it the most efficient we can be. That's kind of the name of the game around here, is efficiency more than anything else. So that about wraps up the video for today. You know, we'll get into some other stuff on a more focused scale, and it won't be in order of how the cars come in or any of that. There probably won't be really a rhyme or reason. It'll be just whatever I'm doing for the day that we'll focus on. And we'll kick up some videos on that, like we already did crushing. We'll kick into some other videos that are a little more focused on each aspect of how we do stuff. So until then, thanks for watching.